The forensics of AI music. Let's get to the bottom of what this is really about. Welcome to the Music Pro, where we get down to the bottom of technology pushing music into new territory today. I'm Shay Alexander Wright, and I am going to touch on a part of AI that maybe some have touched on, but I've had a chance to kind of do a deep dive into the technology based on something that's actually hit my desk over the last couple of weeks, but today specifically, I did a meeting with an artist I work with who is coming into another project, and with some other producers. And so they asked me to sit in on a meeting with them because I'm going to actually record lead vocal, or all the vocals really, for the record that they're working on with this other production team. And what we suspected a little bit ago when the track came in is that it's actually an AI track. And this is not a diss at the producers, it's not a diss on AI music or any of that. Actually, as soon as I heard the track, personally, I loved it. I still like it a lot. I think it's dope. But we'll get into, what that really is towards the end of this video. But I wanted to touch on a couple of things with this track. These guys essentially they asked for a reference track, a reference vocal from this artist, and so I agreed. Yeah, okay, let's give them a reference so we know what they're dealing with. And it'll also give me a chance to kind of set the session up before we actually do the real vocal session. One thing that I'm touching on with this AI discussion is really the essence of this is separating the boys from the men. And I don't mean that in a sexist way. I'm really speaking metaphorically, meaning this is going to show, this technology is going to show who's serious, who's the real deal as producers and musicians, and who is frankly quite novice at this. But one of the things I did was I qualified these guys to see what level of production or musicianship they're actually at. And if they know as much about what they're doing as I know about what they're doing, or maybe revealing as much about what they're doing as I suspect or ultimately know what they're doing. And one of the things is the tempo, so that I could lay the track on the grid good for the artist to get their reference done. I wanted a solid tempo, and I'd already done it. I'd already taken out my metronome on my watch and clocked it in and figured out what the tempo is and what the time signature is. But I wanted to see if these guys could tell me. And one of the things that was really interesting was the tempo that they came back with. And I'm going to show you guys something. Now, the tempo that they gave me after a while, it took probably about 10 minutes for them to get back to us with the tempo once I asked for it. But if you look at this tempo track here, the tempo that they gave me was 67 beats per minute, okay? Now, I'm using new Windows, you guys know. There's a beat calculator in here and a tempo detector and all that kind of stuff. And so I used the tempo detector, and it did exactly what I thought these guys were going to do with AI. I figured they were going to run the track back through AI program, either whatever they used I'm presuming or assuming that they probably use Suno. And I figured they'd run it back through there and let Suno tell them what the tempo is, or even, Chat GPT. You can actually put an MP3 or a file in there, and it will, do an analysis or analyze the track and give you tempo. So, as you can see here, I get 67 based on what New Windows tempo detection does. Okay, I'm going to show you guys some things here in terms of what the tempo detection picked up. Now, you're not going to hear the track. I don't want to play the track out. One, because these guys haven't cut the record yet. I want to give them and the artist a good chance at cutting the record and getting it out. Hopefully, we'll talk about what that really means at the end of this episode. But what I want to show is as it plays on the grid. So you see 200. It's kind of jockeying back and forth. Okay, and then it's gonna come up in a second. You know what? Let's scoot it up a little bit. Okay, so then it drops down into the 60s. You see how it kind of volleys a bit there into the 60s. And one of the things that I noticed too is it doesn't necessarily hold the beat. The further it gets down, there's one part where it actually, instead of the metronome or the click rather dropping on the downbeats, it starts picking up on upbeats. Now, what I did when I first clocked the tempo was I clocked it in 3/4. I know that the track is in 6/8, but I clocked it in 3/4 so I could just on the watch get a general kind of thing going. And it put me at 201 beats per minute, which is about right at 3/4 in the time signature. I know it's 6/8, drop that, cut that in half with 6/8, and of course you got 100 beats per minute. Now, with that, one of the things that I also noticed is a byproduct in AI. Thing about AI generated music is it sounds perfect. I mean, no matter what you're listening to, no matter who prompts it or creates it or prompts the machine to create it, AI music sounds absolutely perfect, strangely perfect. And one of the factors in it sounding strangely perfect is it's because it's pulling from all kinds of references to create, a derivative or a variation of something or things that have already been created. The tempos are quite strange. And what I noticed is the tempo that was actually properly and accurately clocked by me is 100.75 beats per minute. If I go back to the 90s or the 2000s, it reminds me of when we used to clock tempos either in the MPC drum machines that we're using or SP1200s, because the samples that cats would use, the phrasings would be wild. I mean, you're sampling records that were recorded on tape. Some things were done to a click track if they were recorded late enough in the day. Things that weren't recorded so late in the day were a bit loose. They weren't recorded with click tracks. So you would have these kind of tempos. And instead of doing a solid, let's say we're working at 100 beats per minute. Instead of doing a solid 100 beats per minute, you and having to truncate the sample to work with that 100 beats per minute, you just basically clock the tempo. You get your phrase that you want right with the sample, and then you clock the tempo inside of that phrasing. And it would come up to like 100 and say maybe 100.125 or whatever the decimal number would be, or the number would be behind the decimal. So that's what you would do with these AI generated tracks. These tempos are, they come in very, very strange, and this is a clear example of that. 100.75 beats per minute. Okay. So, and guys, I'm looking at my notes because I didn't want to ramble on too long, and I wanted to make sure I hit some really, really specific points. The other thing that struck me in terms of qualifying these producers, and I'm making a point with this, is because of the way the artist that's getting ready to get on this project likes to work, I requested stems from these guys, and they didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. I mean, they didn't know stems from the Man in the Moon. So these guys didn't, they were like, you got the instrumental, blah, 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 no problem, I'll record with the instrumental. But little did they know, I was just basically going to use a stem separator. I'm in Nuendo, I just ran the track through spectral layers, and I got the elements that I needed out of it. I got the drums broken down, the bass, the guitar separated, and then anything else that's, just kind of extra or whatnot. And laid them into the track. It lined up right with the instrumental, and that was that. So anyway, my point to this is that, one of the things is, as cool and wondrous as AI is, one of the things that it's doing now is it's showing who's a pro and who's a novice. And I think with that, it's going to be the determining factor in terms of who's a serious producer or musician and who's not. The thing about what we do in music is we create art, of course. I mean, we, obviously refer to ourselves as artists, and what we are doing is art for sure. But on the other side of the art, in terms of commercial music production, there's a craftsmanship that comes into play. I mean, what we do in recorded music is a craft. And it's honed. Things are worked and reworked and shaped so that they last, so that they're interesting, hopefully forever. That's the thing that's really going to distinguish serious cats in the game from the not so serious in terms of AI. It's to what level or to what degree are you using AI? Good musicians make good music, and one of the reasons they're able to make good music is because they can explain what it is that they do. And good musicians know what they're doing. And I'm not talking about knowing or being able to spell chords or scales or anything like that. I'm just talking about sheerly being able to show what it is that you've done. It reminds me of a thing about a year ago. There was somebody who came to me with a project that they just completed, and they were very excited about it and really proud of it, and really anxious for me to hear it and check it out, and of course give them feedback on it. Excuse me, guys. So I did. I listened to it as soon as I got in the car going home one night. As soon as I heard it, I loved it. Thought it was dope. Definitely, some of the most polished stuff I'd ever heard. And but there was this little thing, in the back of my mind that went, that might be that this might be AI. So I listened to it a second time, of course, still digging it, still thinking it's dope. And it's like, yeah, this is AI. And then I listened to it a third time. after I got in, I put my earbuds in, actually, and it was like, oh yeah, there's no doubt about it, this is AI. But I ended up having a conversation with the cat the next day, told him what I thought, and just kind of qualified him on it. And the thing was, he was very frustrated because he was not able to distribute it commercially. This is maybe the beginning of the time where the major digital distributors were refusing to distribute anything that was AI generated. And of course, we know that the major record companies are in a battle with the AI music companies about them lifting from all of these copyrights that are out here, especially the most popular copyrights being used. So he was really frustrated about that, and didn't know what to do. So one of the things that I told him was, hey, you should probably learn something about music. Now, I bring this up because I think that this very thing is, this guardrail that's in place is a good thing to have. We need guardrails in place when it comes to AI music, just like we have guardrails in place relative to any part of the copyrights that we create. But this is a good thing. And what is making sure we all do is use AI as a tool and not necessarily as the means. If you guys get my drift. I think the dangers of AI in terms of music creation for new artists or writers or producers or whatever is the same as what streaming has been to the record industry. In terms of the market, if the market has all this access to all of this music at the touch of a finger for very little to no money, depending on your subscription plan, then it means that the market generally doesn't see any value in music, doesn't see any value in what it's consuming. And so if you have creators that are creating music and they don't know anything about creating music from nothing, or from sheer inspiration, not a prompt, then it, of course, we kind of flirt with the trouble of the creators not valuing music anymore, or in the way that it should be. So I'm just, that's just food for thought. The market's never going to bend to the computer. And the reason the market is never going to just completely give in to AI generated music is the human condition just won't allow it. We can sense when something is not genuine, when something is really and truly manufactured that should be organic. I think the proof is in the pudding when you look at how popular concerts are these days. I mean, think of how astronomical concert ticket prices have become. And yet fandom is growing exponentially, depending on who the artists are and what type of artists they are. I mean, think of the Beehive and the Swifties and Lady Gaga's Monsters, and on and on and on, and all the fans that follow the K-pop artists, and that's just the tip of the spectrum. People pine for these artists. They find themselves pining for these artists, and I'm using that term, pining, very, very pointedly, very intentionally, because a lot of these fans, if not most of them, they dream of seeing these artists perform. And they live for it. Their favorite artist record comes out, and they literally live for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, on up to 9 months to a year, working and planning to go see them in concert. So, and that's because they're getting something. Emotionally, they're touched. Their spirits are touched. They're moved by whatever the performance is from these artists. So that thing's not going away. The computer is going to help us with this immensely in terms of creating new music and making once impossibles completely possible. But it's not going to overtake everything, because we just won't stand for it. We won't allow it. And I'm gonna say too, for new jacks getting into the AI thing in terms of production and writing, you want to be able to speak the language, and not necessarily that you have to speak in music jargon, if you will, for lack of a better word, but you have to be able to express what you're looking for, what you're trying to achieve musically. You have to be able to, and you should be able to reference other musicians, other artists, other songs. Like you should be able to point to something and say, that's what I'm going for. In terms of you producing and then working with artists on your AI generated work. Granted, we see a number of a few AI artists that are extremely popular. I think, what is it? Inly Blue is the one who has like 10 million streams or whatever, and then there's the band Velvet Sundown or whatever. They've got like 900,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Just stuff like that. There's Zania Monet, who's this R&B AI artist, and they're charting. I think they've got charts. They've got something charting on Billboard Gospel and maybe is it R&B? Like there's an adult R&B chart or something on Billboard. But anyway, nonetheless, like you've got these, you've got some completely AI things that are out there, getting real traction. But I think it's novel. At the end of the day, I really do think it's novel. We'll see. But anyway, that's my fill on this whole AI thing, and I wanted to essentially, excuse me, guys, bring your attention to something that I discovered doing a deep dive, or the forensics of AI, as I put it earlier, is that they're just some strange things that to me are fairly unique to AI, unless you're doing something with sampling. And I think those things are going to be the revealing factors between music that is completely AI generated, or predominantly AI generated, versus music that is, especially in this day and age, rather organic. So, I'd love to know what you guys think about this whole AI ride. I'd love to know how you're using AI yourselves, if you are at all. I'd like to know if you are dead set against AI, and think it's the devil, or however people want to describe it. So please leave the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. I do have another episode coming up where I'm going to talk about something that Chris Lloyd Alger mentioned at NAMM. I know NAMM was a few weeks ago, and people have already done their whole NAMM recaps. I was not going to get on and bore everybody with my own personal NAMM recap. But we did stop, my brother and I stopped by the SSL booth, of course, and caught Chris Lord-Alge doing a clinic. And he mentioned something that I stand by in a very big way. So I'm going to do a little expansion on that. I did video him a little bit, although I didn't video as much as I thought. And then somebody else videoed the same clinic at the SSL booth with my brother and me right behind Chris Lord-Alge, which is kind of strange to see. But anyway, I'm going to do that because I think it's an interesting topic in terms of production, and it's going to actually get into the benefits of having a large format control surface, if you will. So please look for that episode coming up as well. Until next time, I'm Shay Alexander Wright. Take care.